Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to session T26, the Ultimate Competitive Advantage, Sustainability. I have a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to share before we get started. Again, this year we have the app for the conference. If you haven't downloaded it, please download it now. It has most up-to-date conference information, and also the session evaluations are in the app. It's very important that we get the session evaluations filled out because they provide feedback for future conferences as well as direct feedback to the speakers. Also, I'd like to call your attention to the live polling. There is live polling for this session. If you have any questions about the app, please feel free to ask any ASQ staff member in the ASQ Center. I'd now like to introduce today's speaker, Willy Vandenbrande. Willy is a founder and president of QS Consult, a European consulting agency that assists in organizations in various aspects of quality management. His client list as a consultant includes a wide variety of manufacturing companies as well as service and nonprofit organizations. He's delivered presentations at many international conferences and has written numerous articles on quality management. Willy holds a master's degree in civil engineering metallurgy from the State University of Ghent in Belgium, and a master's degree in total quality management from the University of Limburg, also in Belgium. He holds a Six Sigma Black Belt certification from American Society for Quality. He is an ASQ Fellow, Chair of the Fellows Technical Group, and the ASQ Country Counselor for Belgium. Willy's also an associate member to the International Academy for Quality and part of the Quality and Planet Earth Concerns think tank of IAQ. I'd like to welcome Willy to speak. We'll save time at the end for questions.
Thank you, Ed. Can you all hear me? So this works, that's good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here. You know how they say this in airlines, you know, we appreciate your business. We do know you have a choice. You had the choice to be out having a cold beer, and instead you chose to actually listen to this. I'll have a little content on that. So we'll start with a little introduction. And actually the title is Quality and Competitive Advantage. And the first thing and sustainability, and the first thing I will talk about is the link between quality and sustainability. The second thing is the link between sustainability and competitive advantage. I will add a little bit of a more philosophical, moral aspect towards the end, and that will lead to one fairly simple conclusion. Okay. But I will start with a quote by someone you all know, and it's a quote that was one of the inspirations for this speech. It's a quote by Abraham Lincoln. The problem with quotes on the internet is you can never be certain they are authentic. I don't think, Christian, it's very respectful towards Abraham Lincoln to laugh with his quote. But anyway, this made me think about another quote by another famous man, Albert Einstein. And this quote says, the problem with statements on sustainability is you can never be certain they are sincere. Okay. Now, why was that an inspiration for this speech? Because it is actually a link to what I brought last year. I gave a presentation on sustainability last year at the conference, and I introduced what I called my AAA approach. And the approach is about awareness, adoption. Adoption could also be seen as action. Awareness, action, and then achievements, the results. And the basic idea was we need to have enough awareness before we can get things going within an organization. And so that would be a rather linear way of working. We create the awareness, we do the actions, we get the results. Now, thinking about that Einstein quote that obviously I made up, the point of that is if we can never be certain how sincere the messages are and the words that are in the vision and mission and all these great statements, because everybody has sustainability in that, how long will we wait before we do actions? When will we be certain enough? And I think that's going to be very difficult. And, you know, knowledge grows with time. And the idea today is maybe we don't need to wait until they are 100% sincere. We might do it the other way around. Do actions, do things, and create achievements, and use these achievements to then create awareness and get a sort of a continuous helix of increased sustainability going. So that's the idea, break that linear logic, but keep the approach as a whole. And if I say I want to do that from a quality point of view and from quality organizations or quality management systems, we need to look at what can we do, so what are we good at? We are good at standards, systems, and we'll talk about ISO 9001, but also, obviously, sustainability thinking, ISO 14001, environmental management systems, and 26,000 social responsibility standards. That's one aspect. The second aspect that we're good at is everything that has to do with improvement projects, and all the various techniques that are related to that, like Six Sigma, Lean, TRIZ, and many others, actually. And then the final idea is, if we as quality can support actions within the organizations that lead to financial results, this can lead to increased awareness, and that will then in turn lead again to more possibilities for action, and we can get this sort of helix going. Good. Let's start with the first point when I talked about quality systems. One thing you could do is expand your quality management system with environmental management aspects. Now, that can be creating a complete environmental management system and have it certificated, but that's not even absolutely necessary. You could combine the two without having the environmental part certificated. That's your choice. If you want to do that, now is a better time than ever. With the new ISO 9001 version, they created a high-level structure. The high-level structure has the big advantage that environmental management systems are structured exactly the same, and that you can keep the same structure for the both, whether it's quality of environment. There are also several items in the standard that actually promote integration. Some of the new terms introduced, like context of the organization, the environment that you are working in is part of the context of your organization. There's no need when management does this exercise to say, well, we'll forget about any environmental issues that could arise. Why not do them all together? Interested parties, just the same. The people that live around you are interested parties. Risk-based thinking. We can think about risks for quality, but we can think about risks actually for safety. We can think about risks for environment, and we can better do all that thinking work at once. So there's a lot of possibilities there. The last one is then more of a, I generally call that a negative motivation, but that's not a really good term. But you may get more requirements for ISO 14001 certification in time. I'm not a really big fan of certification, but that's a whole other issue and another presentation. But when your customer asks that, that's what you are going to have to do. There's no other way. But these are things that you could do, and again, you don't even have to take the entire ISO 14001 standard. You can look at what is useful for us now and add it into your quality management system. You don't even have to tell your management that you're doing that. You can just take some things, if you have a process, and you add in your process description environmental consequences. No manager ever reads these things to that detail, so you can do all of that without any problem. I don't know if people are aware with Tom Peters, Thriving on Chaos and Towards Excellence, he used to call that skunk work. So you can do a little bit of skunk work and help the world get a better place, become a better place. Now, the first live polling we will do, and now I hope this works, is to see what the potential for improvement is within this group of people by introducing 14001 elements into your 9001 system. So the question I would ask you, I don't know how well this works, but I see some people already busy. So I'll try to get this going. Okay, is your organization ISO 9000 or similar and 14001 certificated? Only 9001, only 14000 or neither? Okay, all of you who can push, probably pushed. These are percentage figures, so it's very dangerous to draw large conclusions out of it. It's certainly not big data, so we have to be careful. But actually, I have to say, I'm very pleasantly surprised that we have quite a number of people that already have the both certifications, so that probably either integrated them or have the two systems separately. A tip on that subject, integrate them, it's always better. No one that only has ISO 14001, and still a lot of, 11 and 44, 55% room for improvement towards environmental certification. Now, I have to get out of the screen. Good, perfect. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the second standard, which is the social responsibility standard. And very important, two words. It's a guidance on social responsibility. And for my presentation, that has two consequences. Well, for you, that has a couple of consequences, also for my presentation. The first consequence for you, most important one, it's a guidance. This is not a certifiable document. Okay, so you cannot be certificated according to ISO 26000. It gives you a lot of ideas. The second thing is, it's about social responsibility. Now, social responsibility is a big area. Okay, there's labor, there's equal pay, and all that sort of thing in there. We will focus on sustainability. The standard has 7 core subjects. We'll only look at the one that talks about the environment. And for those of you who are interested, that's paragraph 6.5. So that's the thing we will look at. In that paragraph, in ISO 26000, they treat a couple of what they call environmental issues. Things that you can work on if you want to work on environmental improvement. And the issues are prevention of pollution, sustainable resource use, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and protection of environment, biodiversity, and restoration of habitats. All 4 clearly very important environmental and sustainability problems. So these are the 4 things that they mention. And what we're going to do now, in order to make our actions of quality more concrete, is to see what can we do, what sort of actions can we instigate in these 4 areas, these 4 issues. Okay? Now, what can we do on our own? Of course, absolutely nothing. Quality, we are the kind of people that do not work. I mean, otherwise they would call us production. So they don't, we are quality. And what does that mean? We are the people that help others do better. That's our job in an organization. We are the people that help others do better. And here we try to be the people that help others be more sustainable. That's my goal here. And who are we going to talk to? For prevention of pollution with R&D, research development, new product innovation, no matter how you call it. For sustainable resource use operations, the thing we know pretty well. For climate change personnel, that's, that's changed probably from the usual partners that we talk to. And for the protection of the environment, the most difficult task probably, the board of directors. But we'll start with prevention of pollution. And I'll each time give a little introduction on what is meant, and then give a couple of examples of what quality can do or start or get going in an organization. Now, you all know this, reduce, reuse, recycle, the 3 R's. There's been a song about that. I'm forgetting who sang it, but anyway, some of you will know probably. That I am not talking about here. We are actually trying to look at prevent pollution. And the people that can prevent the most in an organization is R&D, product development, product design. And I'm going to tell you, design determines 80% of pretty much everything. 80% of cost, 80% of quality, 80% of manufacturability, 80% of customer satisfaction. You name it, design determines at least 80% of that. So if you have a quality department of 20 people, 16 of them should be working there in the design area to help design get better. I'm pretty sure it is not the case. So we need to focus in general much more on design. Now, why do I start with this? Well, it's the first issue in the standard, but it's also the one where I think huge improvements can still be made, despite the fact that we very often claim we are already very sustainable and thinking about the environment and so on. And I'll give you a couple of simple examples. This is the first one. You all know what this is. This is a cartridge from a laser printer. It's actually a picture of the one that goes in my laser printer. This contains of at least 3 types of plastic. It has 2 metals. It weighs 650 grams. You take one out of your printer and you put one like that in. And why? Because you need 200 grams of powder. Now that's not very wise, actually. It must be possible to do this better. This would be like your car is almost empty on gas. You go to the gas station, but instead of filling, you tell them, you know what, take all of this out of my car, put in an empty one, put in a full one, and I'm off. We don't do that. That seems like total ridiculous waste. Why do we do that with printers? So there's a lot of possibility for improvement. The second example is, in my eyes, even worse. And for the second example, we'll start with a very nice drawing. I think the author is Hokusai, but I'm not 100% sure. Some people may know that. People that were in the member leader session, Stephen Hacker used the same image of Mount Fuji and the wave. That's actually the name of the drawing. However, my drawing, my copy here is much more realistic than Stephen's because the wave is full of plastic, which is a very good representation of many parts in the ocean today. So what do? We do all sorts of things to clean the ocean. There's actually a Dutch student that has started this product. It's called the Ocean Cleanup Project. He raised a lot of money for that, and there are some prototypes that they do. Now, don't get me wrong. Everything that is done to get things cleaner is a positive action. However, this idea has 2 big disadvantages. One, it's a big ocean. It's a very big ocean, so that's clearly a problem. 2, the plastic that is in there comes in 2 types. You have the big plastics, but then you have microplastics, very small particles of plastics. And they come again from 2 sources. You have large pieces that start to degrade and that end up in a lot of small pieces. You also have products that get microplastics in them, and these microplastics immediately end up in the water. One example of that is toothpaste, where microplastics were added. That is something that I personally cannot believe that we do that. Because toothpaste is something that you know it will end up in the water. You know it will end up in the ocean. You know it will end up in animal life in the ocean. And still we do that. That's amazing. Of course, now we start realizing this was not very smart, so gradually are forbidding its use. But you must not underestimate the consequences. And to show you the consequences, I'll bring you a little bit of Belgian art. There you go. And this is a work of art. You might not believe me, but it truly is. It's called the Mosselpot, which is Dutch for the pot of mussels. See, you know Dutch. It's by Marcel Brotax, who is one of our biggest modern artists. And why is it an important work of art? Because it captures the soul of Belgium. We are the biggest mussel eaters in the world. However, these mussels, they grow by eating themselves. And what do they eat? They eat like these small animals that look really nice, you know, with this fluorescent thing. The fluorescent thing are microplastics. Now, recently, the University of Ghent, my alma mater, the State University of Ghent, did research on the amount of microplastics. And the conclusion of that was the average Belgian gets 11,000 particles of microplastics a year in his body only through the eating of mussels. Now that is quite amazing, isn't it? That is quite amazing. So we really must prevent plastic from getting into that water chain because it's ruining us all, actually. So we really need to do that preventive-wise. Now, what can you do? Again, well, you can help clean up the ocean, of course. If there are volunteers, you can always do that. But what you can do, for instance, is to make sure that things like that are picked up in the design of a product. So that whatever risk analysis methodology you have to evaluate your design, add pollution risks in there. Think in terms of life cycles of a product. What are all the different pollution risks over this entire life cycle? Get them in there standard. No matter what product you develop, you get the question, what will be the consequence on water, air, pollute, whatever. Yeah? So make sure that this is done. I'll go one back. Learn and teach techniques like TRIS. Not only TRIS, there are other techniques that you can use, but learn and teach techniques like TRIS to focus on functionality, ideal final result. Last year, I gave some more explanation about that. If any of you need some more information on that, please contact me. But the idea is to try and fulfill the functional need without a product. Okay. If you don't have a product, you don't have any waste either. Think life cycle, think preventive. That's, the main reason why I think quality can play a big role in all of this is because this is basically what we were raised with, prevention. So we should be very good at thinking of ways on preventing problems from happening. Good. Then we have sustainable resource use. Now, sustainable resource use, we are very good at that. Actually, we as a quality function deliver a lot of good things in sustainable resource use. This we do mostly with operations, because this is where we work on all our projects, all our improvement projects. Many of them have sustainability consequences, positive sustainability consequences. We don't always name them as such, but they are there. Waste is waste. So if we reduce waste in a project, very often that has sustainability consequences. So we should mark that, let that be more visible for management that we are doing a sustainability project. Think of the improvement efforts you do. Maybe add an evaluation of the sustainability into the project selection criteria. How much will this project add to sustainability? And that could be a factor that determines we will do this project rather than another. That could help. Evaluate running Lean Six Sigma applications. See all the things they bring in all these areas and promote that more. Let the word sustainability sort of be heard every now and then. But again, we are all together doing, I think, a great job in working on this through our quality improvement project. The next one is climate change mitigation. Now, climate change mitigation, that's a serious problem and a big problem, because this is a global problem. Now, I'll do a sort of a 5 why, but without a why now. So you have a very global problem where sometimes people might think this is beyond my reach. Whatever I do, I will not change that because it's so global. However, small things done a zillion times are meaningful. Now, there are many things you can do, and I will focus here on personnel. Actually, when I say there are many things you can do, I come up with a couple of examples of actions that can be taken. I'm pretty sure you can come up with a lot more and a lot better ones even. They are just examples of all the things that are possible, and the things I'm giving are all easily applicable, but there are plenty more. For that, to do something, we will sit together with personnel. No, that's something that quality does not too often do, I think. I'll give you a couple of simple actions. Offer or promote e-bikes. If you have people that come to work on their bike instead of in a car, you do something on climate mitigation and you do something for their health. E-bikes are fantastic bikes. I have one. I'm biking like 10 times more than I used to do. And you do just, because I know some people then think, yeah, e-bikes, electric, you do have to push. Otherwise, you just fall over. So don't think I'm doing nothing with that. But that's one possibility. Another possibility, promote carpooling. Promote carpooling. I'll come to carpooling in a second when I talk about how much money does this bring now, and I'll use that as an example. Install electric vehicle loading stations, so that people that drive an electric car can load their car at work. And then this is a special one. Hire a tire pressure check company. You may be surprised about this, but I think you all know that tire pressure, correct tire pressure, is very important for consumption of a car. It's also very important for safety, actually. So what do all of us do? At least once a month, we check the tire pressure of our car. No, not all of us. Actually, this is called discipline. And that is something that we are very good at, imposing it on others. We will generally feel that people are not disciplined enough. Note the word people. This company helps you with that. They actually, if you have a large car park where the personnel cars are parked, they come to the car park and they will check each and every car and each and every tire and bring it to the perfect pressure. So I mean, they're selling air and it's not marketing. So that's quite amazing. And then we come to the most difficult one, protection of the environment, because there, this is big. So you might need to talk with the board of directors. You don't very often do that, probably, talking to the board of directors. Why? Because you're not in there. So that's the first thing you need to do. You need to become a member of the board of directors, and you'll have much more influence. Now, I'm not just saying that as a joke, because I come in many, as a consultant, you come in many companies. I speak with a lot of CEOs. These CEOs come from finance, sales and marketing, sometimes operations, very, very rarely from quality. Very rarely from quality. And believe me, IQ, SQ, EQ, you are not less than these other people from these other departments. So we should all be a bit more ambitious and try to become, I don't know, CEO, and then you will probably be in the board of directors. So that's one idea to take home with you from the conference, become CEO. So work on that. There are other things you can do. You can look together with purchasing for the guaranteeing of sustainable sources of raw materials, because this is protection of biodiversity, etc. So where do we buy our raw materials? Are these harvested in a sustainable way, etc.? So these are things that could be done. And another thing that could be done to have some impact on the board of directors is to show the financial benefits. That's the sort of thing that these people tend to like. Financial benefits. And there you can work together with finance. But that we will see in the second part. And before I come to that, we'll have a second live polling. And this is just to see you for yourself in your organizations, or if you are an individual person, which of these issues do you think you could improve the most? Where do you think are the biggest opportunities for your organization or for yourself? And I'll try to get this going again. That's nice. 15. Okay, you see, everybody pushed that can push. Okay, let's have a look. Well, sustainable resource use. Stop pushing. Oh my God. Sustainable resource use, prevention of pollution is the protection of the environment. Basically, the idea is if you say that's the biggest opportunity, that's probably the thing that you are doing the least at the moment. That's sort of what you would expect. Climate change mitigation is also there, but limited. Big problem. Okay, thank you. Okay. Good. Now, these are all sorts of actions related to these issues. The next thing is, of course, does this bring me money? Because I said we will talk about it in a sense of competitive advantage. Now, it brings competitive advantage now, today, immediately, some of the things that you can do. For instance, innovative, environmentally friendly products that you have developed together with research and development will give you a marketing advantage. Yesterday morning, the first keynote speaker mentioned this ex-con who entered the bakery of his family. What did he do? It was all sustainability. Solar energy, he had local delivery, he biologically grown raw materials. It boosted. People are responsive to that. So that's one thing. Market your sustainability. Second, reducing the use of resources, obviously, and that's what comes out of your Six Sigma projects, for instance, does lead to immediate bottom line savings. And there's another issue to be added to that. No matter what type of energy that you are using, it doesn't matter whether it's solar or whether it's oil, gas, nuclear, the cheapest energy is the one that you have not consumed. So reducing consumption is always beneficial. So that's important. And small actions do bring large profits. And I will come back to the carpooling example. I made a little sort of scenario, well, big word scenario, but anyway, I took the following example. Suppose you have 11,000 people commuting, and it's estimated that 128 commute in the US. It's a figure from the internet, so I don't know how sure you are that it's correct, but it stays a small sample. And the idea is they drive, each of them individually in one car to work and back. That's the starting point. So you have 11,000 cars that you need to get them back and forth. And we will gradually move them to more and more people in 2 people per car. And some assumptions on commuting distance, mileage, days of commuting, and CO2 exhaust per car. If you do that together, this is the simplest thing that you can do with the scenario. What is the influence on the number of cars? So you can start from 11,000, and as more and more people drive with 2 people in a car, you end up with 6,000. That's what the scenarios, the way I laid it out. As I said, it's a very simple example. Now you may say, yes, but maybe we are already here, and then there's not much profit to be gained anymore. There was recently a study in Belgium. We have big traffic problems. Believe me, we have big traffic problems. There was a study in Belgium, and in rush hour, the average occupancy of a car is 1.1. 1.1. 1.1 is scenario 3 here. We have 11,000 people in 10,000 cars. So it's not that unrealistic, these numbers. So what you see is a big reduction in number of cars. We have 10,000 here. If you take scenario 6, we have 8,500 cars on the road. It is normally said that if the number of cars reduces by 10 to 15%, traffic jams disappear. So if we would be able to go from scenario 3 to scenario 6, we do a hell of a job for traffic. But not only for traffic, because we're talking about CO2, financial results, sustainability. This is the amount of CO2 reduction by scenario, and this is in tons per year, and that would be 12,000 tons of CO2 less. And in money, also interesting, the cost savings would be over $3 million for these 11,000 people. And it would also be helpful for social relations within your organization if more people drove together back and forth to work. And maybe with a bit of effort, you can get people to drive with 4 in one car, and then these scenario, gains and so on would be even bigger. So there's really a lot to be gained from what essentially seem small things. But what is even more important, actually also for your board of directors, is one, what do we gain now? But what will that mean for the future? Why would we do sustainability? That's what the board of directors is there for, to safeguard the future of the organization, actually. So why would we do that? Would that really be worthwhile? And therefore, there you have to sit together with finance. Who sits very regularly together with finance? Not very many of you, eh? Yeah, yeah. You know, they're nice people. Very few of them bark and only a limited number bite. But you shouldn't be afraid to sit down with finance. And I'm going to tell you why sustainability will be the ultimate competitive advantage tool for two reasons. One, when natural resources become scarce, they become expensive. Any resource that becomes scarce becomes expensive. That's one. The second one is externalizing internal costs will be more and more difficult. Society will no longer accept that they have to put up with the burden and the shareholders take the profit. And I'll give a little bit of explanation and examples to these two trends that you will see. Sustainable resource. This is water. Annual water bill in Belgium for an average family. Now, it's in euros. Sorry, I didn't change it to dollars. And this is over a 5-year period. The increase is about 30%. You know, so the family now pays 30% more for their water than they did 5 years ago. The overall inflation rate over that period was 10%. So water is increasing in price 3 times faster than the average price increase. That's amazing. That's amazing. And what is even more amazing, these are figures from Belgium. We are a country that does not lack water. In fact, this is how our summers look. And so as you can see, plenty of water there. I hope there's nobody from the tourist port of Belgium here in the room. They wouldn't like that. But, so don't underestimate what basic things are going to cost in the future. I recently read a couple of articles that in Dubai, they're having big problems because they don't have enough sand to build all their high buildings. And there's a sort of a sand mafia underway, stealing sand and then selling it back. You wouldn't believe, I mean, like water, sand, these are the sort of things that we would take for granted, wouldn't we? Actually, we should. So that's one thing. The second thing is about these externalized costs. And I'll show you how a modern economy works. It's a bit slow. There it goes. We make something somewhere. It's a strawberry phone. Then we ship it. We ship it once more. And lo and behold, this is what happens with the cost and price of that product. So why do I put this on? For two reasons. One, those of you who have been in lean courses and that were told transport is non-value added, totally wrong. Nothing in this economy brings more money than transport. You take something, you move it twice, and the value is multiplied by 50. Amazing, huh? It's almost magic. But what I want to point out here is these red lines have consequences. Transport influences the environment. There are exhaust gases, there's a risk involved, traffic costs, so there's medical cost potentially that's created. Infrastructure is being destroyed as all these trucks drive on that. So there's a lot of external cost generated. I'll give you another example. This is a picture from like 15 kilometers from where I live, 10 miles from where I live. It's the car coke site in Zeebrugge. It's a site that produced coke for the steel industry. It started in 1906 or 1907, and it stopped production in 1992. This picture is from last year. Okay, this picture is from last year. So you see that this is really, not much has changed. Nothing has been done, not much has changed. Why? Because it is 15 hectares of heavily polluted land. Nobody wants to buy that because it's heavily polluted. So what's going to happen? Government will have to do something about it. Cost is estimated as being $80 million. Yeah? Now you know all this, by the time it's cleaned, it'll be 200. All these things are always heavily underestimated. That sort of thing is going to be more and more difficult to do. There will be more and more pressure to have external costs internalized. cost to society to be paid by those that cause it. Because we cannot go on like that anymore. We cannot go on like that. And it's in our interest. You all know Adam Smith's invisible hand theory about the market economy. It's somewhere here. But there's another economist, Kenneth Arrow, who unfortunately died earlier this year. And Kenneth Arrow tested Adam Smith's invisible hand. Because the idea of Adam Smith is exactly what I say, an idea, and even more of a belief. Okay, Adam Smith never gave any proof of his theory. Kenneth Arrow tried to do that, and he came up with a conclusion. This works, however, under a set of limiting conditions. Okay? There are a few other things that need to be there before this invisible hand can start working. One of the limiting conditions is, if large external costs are generated, it fails. Yeah. And this is rather logical. The theory is, if everybody tries to get his profit maximized, the profit for everybody will be maximized. But if I try to become very rich by creating a lot of costs for others, the whole will not be improved. So this thing of externalizing internal costs, at some point in time that will no longer be possible. And that is why, if you want to think about future sustainability, also financially, of the company, you need to create scenarios with finance. How much will our waste cost? Now we have waste, and we dump it somewhere, and we pay a certain amount of money. That amount of money will go sky high, undoubtedly. How much will resources cost? What if a CO2 tax is introduced? What will be the consequences for our company? What if cleanup costs are asked? What if you need to have a part of your profits put separately for eventual cleanup costs? And so on, and so on, and so on. And these are the sort of things that can help you, together with finance, to create numbers that are meaningful for a board of directors, for instance. And I'm going to end with this, going back to awareness and to the more, how did I call it, philosophical, moral part of this sustainability thing. The question I ask myself always, I say, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that, and it's just me, so all of you can come up with a lot better ideas and a lot more for sure. Will this be enough? Okay. Will this be enough to really come to sustainability? And I think, in general, I think it won't be. I think we will need to change some very big boxes. Now, last year, I talked about the growth economy box that, in my view, will at some point in time hit its limits. Today, I want to talk about a human-centric box, because a lot of what we call sustainable development is very human-centrically defined, and actually, the best known definition of sustainable development is the one that was developed by the Brundtland Commission of the United Nations, 1987, I think, so that's already quite some time. And this is what it says. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. But this is the present generation of humans, the future generation of humans. Now, humans, all in all, are not doing very badly. Actually, we're extremely successful as a species. And this graph shows that. The blue line is the increase in population. So we grow very fast, especially the last couple of decades, actually. However, our success comes at a cost for other species, because the orange-red line are the number of species that got extinct over that period. And these two lines seem to be going pretty well up together. Yeah. That's not a good sign. This is protection of the environment. Now, you have seen this. And later on this, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And this is, of course, true. However, I think if we want to come to total sustainability, we'll have to make some changes to this slogan, all lives matter, to make it more valuable. It's a little bit of juggling. It took me 10 hours to get this in the right place. And it says, all life matters. All life matters, not just our generation, but all life matters. These species matter. Okay? They're all, at this point in time, on the critically endangered list, the ones that are on here. Now, the world will not come to an end when there are no longer Amur snow leopards. We won't be any less or worse off if there are no more of these leopards. However, the world will have lost just a little bit of beauty. And we cannot afford to lose beauty. We cannot afford to lose beauty. So we really, really have to turn this thinking, or Anthropocene thinking, to a real sustainability where all life matters.